This episode is brought to you by Sisu Sauna. Sauna and contrast therapy offers a natural and holistic approach to wellness, providing numerous benefits that support physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Heat from the sauna helps relax muscles and improves blood circulation, aiding in the recovery of strained or fatigued muscles. It can also help reduce muscle soreness after intense physical activity. We've been lucky enough to have Sisu Sauna on board as a partner of Power Monkey Camp for the past few camps, and it's been an incredible addition. We've added contrast therapy as a station to our camp, and the campers and staff have loved the added experience. I try to jump in the sauna as often as I can. We're in Tennessee for our camp, and I can't wait to add one of these to my home gym. Sisu saunas are made in the USA using the highest quality wood and steel products, plus their new Hume heaters are the best on the market. If you're interested in trying contrast therapy, we cannot recommend these saunas highly enough. Please use the code POWERMONKEY, all one word, all lowercase, for 5% off. Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Mike Service, and on today's episode, we have a return guest, Kari Pearce. Kari is a four-time fittest American female, as well as having finished on the podium in third place back in 2020 at the CrossFit Games. She is also a University of Michigan alum, where she competed on the gymnastics team during those years. We talk a little bit about her gymnastics roots, as well as her transition away from being a competitive athlete into the next stage of her life. Living now in Las Vegas with her fiance, having just bought a new house, she's helping to mentor some of the young and up-and-coming athletes in the underdog community out there. Her perspective is an important one for all aspiring athletes out there working to find a balance between being a top-tier athlete and having a life outside of the gym. Enjoy. Kari, thank you so much for being on with us again. It's been a while since we chatted with you last time, so it's good to catch up again. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's good to see all you guys, and always good to chat and see what everybody's been up to. But things are good. Busy in a different way than when I was competing and stuff, but still good.
Excellent. We want to give you a little update. We were just chatting about this before we got on, but we're in Europe right now. Jordan's in Rome touring around, and me and Mike are in Crete, Greece, and we had a fun little visitor today, and we don't know what to do about it. See if you can give us any advice on this. Mike, what was the animal that ended up showing up in our storage area today?
So it's okay. We're on an island with lots of nice animals and things, and the gym storeroom is outside. And one of our other coaches that's here from South Africa, who was just asking me, like, are there any dangerous animals? Should I be worried? No, I've more or less lived here for like the last 4 years. And walked into the storeroom, and there's an animal that has gone to the bathroom all over and is now sleeping in the corner. And she thought it was a dog. Then we looked closer, like, that doesn't look like a dog. So we brought one of the locals over, and he kept saying the name in Greek, and he's like, I don't know what it is. So he looked it up. It's a honey badger. So we have a sleeping honey badger in our storeroom, and we're basically all locked in our houses and like waiting until somebody that's smarter than us knows what to do with this honey badger. Any advice for us?
No, I wish I had better advice. Actually, when you said badger, like the first thing that came to mind is like Wisconsin, because I think their mascot is like the Badgers or something.
Yeah.
And I was thinking as a Wolverine that you've had experience with these types of animals before.
Even being in Michigan, I never actually had an experience with a Wolverine either. So I'm going to be useless in this department. And Vegas doesn't have like hardly any like crazy animals or anything either. So I don't know. I mean, could you like not ask one of the locals since they knew what it was?
Yeah, we did. The one, he told me to poke it and see if it would run away. I didn't think that was good advice. The other one told me the opposite. Don't touch it and leave it alone. It'll go away. I was like, yeah, is there like animal control or somebody we can call? And they just looked at me like I was full of something. So we're waiting.
Oh my goodness.
We're going to keep everybody posted on our socials about this new pet that we have.
Yeah.
But
maybe somebody will know.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we'll have somebody in our one of our followers who's familiar with the honey badgers. But it made me think about, you again as a Wolverine, a Michigan grad, because we've been out here in Europe for a couple of weeks now, and we just came from a wedding in Germany where Fabian Hambuchen, who's legend in the gymnastics world, had gotten married, and me and Mike and the rest of the Power Monkey team are very close with Fabian, and he invited us out. And he also invited out fellow Wolverine, Sam Kulik, and we were hanging out with Sam for a couple of days, and we were just reminiscing about his college days. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were a senior when he was a freshman. Is that correct? So you did overlap with him a little bit?
Yeah, I did. It was
Do,
at
do
least
you
1 year. It might have even been 2 years, but yeah,
do
at
you
least
remember?
one.
So Sam, if for those listeners out there who are unfamiliar, Sam is three-time Olympian. He's one of the more important male gymnastics figures in USA Gymnastics for the past 20 plus years. Incredible athlete. And not just Sam, but that whole team, probably while you were finishing up your career on the men's side, kind of created a little dynasty, and led by Sam and Adrian Dos Angeles and Stacy Irvin, who's now become an incredibly important fitness influencer who's been out to camp with us as well. Did you have any interaction with those guys, and could you tell that they were going to do something special with the men's team while you were on the team there?
I mean, I definitely had a lot of interaction with them. I feel like the girls' gymnastics team just gets along so well with the guys' gymnastics team just because you understand each other. And sometimes it's fun to like play around. Like I remember with some of the guys during summer, we would go and play tennis outside together, go to the pool, or just hang out with each other. We would go float down the Huron River. And yeah, while we were there, they were national champions. And you could tell it was just like such a special group of guys. And not just for what they could do, out on the competition floor, but just how well they all got along. Like you could just feel the energy and just how much they supported each other, even outside of the gym, which I think is so important for any team. And then, like you said, I know Stacy and Sam were super close, and it's been really cool to see Sam succeed, like in gymnastics, and then Stacy just being a fitness influencer. Like I obviously still follow him and just really take to his content and stuff because he's very real with stuff that he puts out, and especially recently, like talking about rest and just how important it is and stuff. So yeah, while we were at school, I could definitely see there was something special, but it's been cool to see it come to light.
Yeah, there's quite a few of just that. It seemed like a hub of gymnastics into fitness during those years while you were there. And speaking of this transition from being an elite athlete into whatever was next, for Sam, it's now coaching. For Stacy, it's being an influencer and passing along a lot of knowledge around fitness. And now for you, you've moved on from this identity based around being one of the most important athletes within the CrossFit space. And you mentioned to us prior that it's given you the ability to have a lot more time on your hands, and this idea of, okay, I am not in the gym 6-8 hours a day, and I have all this additional time while I'm training. What has filled that gap for you? What have you done with those additional hours now that you have at your hands?
So I've taken a few more trips. Whenever I was competing, it's like you travel and then it's still like you're thinking about fitness, you're thinking about working out. And so it's been nice, like just taking up a couple trips for myself, not worrying about finding a gym. When am I going to work out? And then even what am I going to eat? It's like, what are the locals eating? Okay, yeah, I want to eat that. Like eat healthy too, and not just like completely splurge because I feel like my stomach would hate me. But just taking time to enjoy things like that. I've been able to see my family a little bit more just because I'm not crazy training. Like my mom had ankle surgery back in February. And so it was nice being able to take that time. Everyone else is like getting ready for the open or doing the open. And I was able to just go and be with my family. So just enjoying moments like that, which I feel like kind of always took the sideburn when you're competing. And I think that's something people don't necessarily see a lot. They see, you competing at the open and then quarterfinals, semifinals, and obviously the games, but they don't know the things that you're giving up outside or what might, take second to your training, which, like I said, was my family or, just like time for me. So I've been doing that. And then also just focusing on laying low more and just taking some like mental time, I guess, for myself because I started gymnastics at 3. I mean, I'm sure. How old were you when you started gymnastics?
Six.
6. Yeah.
The
So
way I
still
was,
very,
well, super old.
it is, but you
Late
were very
bloomer.
successful. And so, yeah, I started
Yeah,
gymnastics at
male
3.
gymnasts don't start a little later, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah. But still, I mean, still that's young and it's what you can remember. And yeah, I started at 3 and had been competing ever since. And so that was like, I feel like what my life was just centered around gymnastics. And then I did weightlifting, physique, powerlifting, and then CrossFit for 7 years. And so it's been nice just taking time to just like relax and do more things like yoga and just lay low. And like I said, we just bought a house, we just moved. So it's been nice, like taking time to unpack and kind of live more of like a not normal life, because no life is like normal, but a little like slower paced life and just enjoying not training all the time and being tired from training, I guess.
But Kari, I can affirm your current feelings and give you a lot of optimism to look forward to. So I'm year 11 now of being retired from any competition, and I was just telling Dave earlier, like I feel like I'm the new proponent of like passive fitness. Like just do what feels good, have fun.
Yes.
Like if you want to do a crazy workout, do it. But just staying active, like you were saying, being able to maybe eat a little bit more free, but still focused on staying healthy. These are things that for me were game changers post competing and training, to just be a little bit more holistic as a person, but probably more my natural self, not like my consumed competitor, or like, yeah, where you just eat, sleep, breathe. What am I doing for training? When am I going to sleep? Yeah, what's for food? Can I get enough of the food? All of these things versus like, wow, life is pretty awesome and I can be a good person.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, because especially someone like me, and I know a lot of athletes are the same way, like you're used to living this lifestyle
Yeah.
for however many years, and you're trying to change your mindset to like, okay, now I like am eating for health and not for performance. And I'm working with a nutritionist, Jen Ryan, to like help me like navigate that, because being a gymnast too, like I feel like your eating habits are, a little messed up in your head. And then switching to CrossFit was great, because it's like, oh, I can eat more because I'm working out more. But still, you're like, I'm eating more because I'm working out more. Now it's like, I'm not working out, but I still need to eat. But it's like also like, just trying to navigate that and be a little more adventurous with food and like trying new foods, and just being a little smarter, but also not as strict.
Yeah.
Was curious about that a little bit, just in terms of diet in general now. I had heard you mention that you were about 3,000 to 3,500 calories a day while you were training. I'm sure very regimented daily with everything that you were intaking, but have things just changed from a caloric standpoint, just decreased because of less training, or have you been more adventurous? And are you now eating things that would have been completely off the table while you were training? How has that really changed in terms of quantity as well as types of foods?
Right when I stopped competing, I was like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, you're not working out as much. You need to eat a lot less. And then I noticed that like my body weight, like right after you're done competing too, like I feel like your body is pretty inflamed from all the training. So right when you're done competing after any competition, like I would usually lose like 2 to 3 pounds that next week, just because you're taking it easy, your body's not inflamed from all the training. But I was like, okay, like I'm gonna eat a lot less. I'm not gonna be training as hard. Like I need to change the way I'm doing things. And then like I was like losing weight, and then I got down, like I'm normally like 139, 140. I only got down to 135, but I could feel like my energy, and I could just even see that I was like leaner than when I competed. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, this is great. And I was like, because in my mind, like I'm like, oh, the leaner I am, yeah, the healthier, the better I'm off. And then I like ended up contacting Jen Ryan, because being an athlete too, like hormones come into play. So that's been something I think for a lot of females out there, which is super important too, whether you're competing or done competing. Hopefully, while you're competing, you navigate it. For me, it wasn't really till I was done, which I think is something people don't talk about a lot, and I think should be talked about more. But luckily, I ended up talking to Jen Ryan, and so she brought me back on track. Like, okay, no, you still need to eat a good amount. Like, you still have a lot of muscle. You still need to fuel your body, even though you're not eating to train. And so first, she just saw what I was eating, and we were around like 2,300 calories. But then I was still like on the low, so she's like, let's raise it. And we've done a little bit of a roller coaster, because I would start to eat more, and then I'm like, oh, Jen, like I'm not feeling so comfortable right now. And she's like, okay, well, let's bring it back down. So we've been up and down, and right now I'm at 3,000, back to 3,000 a day, just because I
Wow.
am trying to gain a little bit of body fat, which I've been told is good for my hormones. not working on it, the mental side of it. But I have been more adventurous with food. I love oatmeal, so I still eat a lot of that. But each week, like I try to, oatmeal, so good. How do you eat yours?
Mike's language.
I'm like right now I'm just wishing my wife was here next to me. This is her like love language of nutrition, and she was a bodybuilder and then got into more, you know, healthy holistic fitness. So like everything that she talks about all day long, and like I'm really excited to hear that this sounds like it's something that you're passionate about now, because yeah, so many like guys kind of have it easy. I did similar though. When I stopped training so hard, I was like, all right, I don't have to eat so much, and got leaner, and was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm lean now and still have good energy, but like the hormone things don't change so much as a guy. So I felt pretty fortunate, like retrospective now. But for you to be working with somebody and then be able to maybe help spread that a little bit of the idea, like, yeah, like lean is not always the greatest. It can be, but really looking at what you're consuming and then making sure that you're fueling yourself so that everything's functioning the way that it should. And yeah, oatmeal, I guess, practical question, because you asked how I like my oatmeal. I like it however my wife serves it to me. So she's like, yeah, she's made oatmeal for everybody on this call except for you. And she gives it to me a little bit like in a trough for a horse. So I have like, yeah, I have way too much, but in the summer we do like more the overnight oats. So she'll do blueberries, chia seeds, like almond milk, and then some Greek yogurt, and then let it sit. Sometimes she'll melt some like white chocolate over the top. So you get to do like the little crack the top open, and it's like I wake up and get dessert for breakfast. It's the coolest thing ever, but she has like protein powder in it. And then when we're more Mediterranean, so when we're here, dates, cinnamon, and then I like it a little more soupy when it's here. And then it's like, yeah, for me, it's the best. What's yours? What's your go-to oatmeal?
Well, if I do overnight oats, when you were talking, overnight oats with the chia seeds and the almonds and blueberries, like that's perfect. A little bit of cinnamon. I haven't tried Greek yogurt in it yet. I've done protein powder, which is always really good. But like basically me and my fiance have it a lot, and it's usually just oatmeal with some sort of fruit. My favorite is mixed berries. We get like a raspberry, blueberry, and blackberry, just frozen fruit. And we usually cook the oatmeal, put the fruit in it, and then let that sit while we eat our like uh, vegetables and meat, whatever it is for that meal, or eggs in the morning, and then put peanut butter, like kind of like a drizzle of peanut butter on top of it.
Oh, I hope everybody's like salivating while they're listening, and then they go out and start eating more oatmeal. But do you find, I guess this would be my question nutritionally. So when you're competing, I'm sure you were very aware, like, okay, I need a lot of carbohydrates to fuel myself to have this energy. Did you find yourself like that's what you were taking away once you weren't training as hard? Like, well, I probably don't need all these carbs.
Yeah, I actually did lower my carbs and I upped my fats. Because when you're competing, I feel like I still ate like some fat, but I more like shied away from it because I was like, I need the carbs for energy. But I think for females too, you still need more fats than, what sometimes I might have eaten. So just trying to have new fats is something I've been working on with Jen too, just adding more oil to things. Because before I'd be like, oh, I just want peanut butter, but usually it's not enough fat. So it's like trying different oils or trying different kinds of nuts or adding more like flaxseed or chia seeds or things like that to oatmeal just to add in some extra fats.
Oh, definitely. Are you a coffee drinker?
I am, and now I'm like at 1 cup a day. So I actually start the morning with like brewed cacao, which I never like would have thought of, but I usually had 2 cups of coffee a day, and I'm like, okay, I've been trying to like reduce just like overall stress too. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna have coffee or the chocolate in the morning and try and wait that 90 minutes that a lot of people are saying you should do before you have your coffee. So I do my walk and have my chocolate, and then about 90 minutes after I get up, then I have my coffee. But yes, why?
All right. Well, if you haven't done it with either of those, I think you'll like it with both. If you do your coffee, just mix it with coconut oil and whatever little bit of cream you like. And then the same thing, I think, if you're doing the cacao, it's so good. It's creamy, gives you your fats that you want. I think that'd be a good one for you to try.
Yeah, that
Mike,
sounds great.
How many cups of coffee are you on a day right now, Mike?
Oh, like 13 to 18. We figured out like somewhere along the lines, I like killed all sensitivity to coffee. So I just love how it tastes. I get no, like I'll drink coffee and go to sleep. That doesn't do
Nick
anything
actually
for me.
uses it to go to sleep now. It's
Yeah,
actually what he
it's, a,
uses to, yeah.
yeah, it's like chamomile for me.
Do you have a favorite kind of coffee, or you're just like, just give me coffee, I don't care?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I like if I can have really good coffee, and we have a machine at our house, so I'll grind the beans, I'll make I'll do pour overs, I'll do espresso. Everybody's listening right now is like, okay, move on now from the coffee talk. But we could do a pretty cool alert though. Dave, as a grown Italian American man, has officially taken a liking to coffee.
Let's not get crazy here. I've had like
Yeah.
4 in my life. All right. I'm not a coffee drinker, but
he's going to be a closet coffee drinker.
Yeah, I was living in Italy for 3 months earlier this year, not that long ago, and I was working, and the water cooler discussion point is always getting an espresso, and we would get him like a bunch. And if I didn't go, I didn't get to interact with anybody, so I would go and cover my nose and drink the espresso, and then I started to like it after a while, and then I was drinking 3-4 cups a day and didn't sleep for 3 months straight, and now I love it. It was just part of the lifestyle in Italy, so I kind of became accustomed to it. And I had one this morning, right, Mike? I had a coffee when me and Mike went to get some breakfast this morning. So I'm trying to become a little bit more like Mike in many ways, and coffee is one of them. Before we move on, I have a couple of questions. You mentioned your fiance. Congratulations on the engagement as well. I think that was earlier this year. So making some major life moves, which is amazing. And you just moved into a new house. Incredible. But your fiance is also a competitor. He just came off of competing at semis, and he's an incredible athlete in his own right. And I'm sure that when you were both training, that you could probably have similar nutritional habits in the household for the most part, and now it's probably a little bit different. How are you navigating being able to manage what he needs as an athlete and now what you're doing? Is it more challenging than it was in the past, or something you find to be pretty seamless?
So, I mean, luckily we still eat kind of similar. He'll eat like more snacks and things like that through the day. I feel like our snacks are more of what's different. For our meals, it is very similar. And at first, like, it was funny because the first time we actually met and he like came over, he looked in my fridge and in my freezer and then like the pantry, and it's like it basically looks the same because we were very similar. And the friend that even introduced us, she was like, yeah, you guys are like so similar, it's scary. And so that's when she first introduced, or like told him that he could message me, because he lived in Phoenix and I lived in Vegas. And she's like, just invite me to the wedding. And I was like, you really think this is gonna be that serious? I was like, well, okay, Tatiana, props to you. Like, you nailed
Called
it.
it.
She's like, you guys are similar. You're boring, especially in your eating. She's like, I like to go out and go. She's like, he is boring. And I was like, well, I'm kind of boring too. So we'll see. But yeah, so, and it actually has been fun because like if I get like different foods and stuff, he's been more than willing to try most of it, except my acupuncturist told me that I should start eating liver. So I've been getting liver pate and making liver toast. And he's like, yeah, I will not touch that. Um, but like especially like different fruits and vegetables and stuff, like he's like, okay, yeah, I'll try it. Or if I get like walnuts, like different kinds of nuts and stuff, he's been willing to try it. And he drinks his coffee. He doesn't do any of the cacao, but he's been my number one supporter, which is awesome. Like just like talking to him through the whole thing. He's like, whatever you need to do, however I can help. So that's been great. Because I feel like I was talking to Ashley Kotler, Justin Kotler's wife, and she's like, I think he's been one of the best things to happen to you, just because you feel that you can do this with him too, and not just by yourself. Like I said, like changing the eating and retiring and all that stuff. So it's been great having him by my side through it. And I feel like the training part though, like at first, I actually put this like on my Instagram story the other day. At first, he would like compete with me. I'm like, no, like I don't want to compete. I'm done, and like I don't want to compare myself to anyone else. Like how many reps I do, the time I get in the workout, I just want to work out. So I'm like, we're not going to work out for a little while together. I'll do something different. We can do it at the same time. But it's been fun just watching him and cheering him on and being like on the coach side of things.
That's
Love
so
it.
that's
That relationship test, right? Like
yeah.
the first thing you walk in, you open the fridge and you open the pantry and say, this is the person that I meant for. Yes. We aligned really well. That's such a great test right away. Excuse me. Open the fridge, open the pantry. Okay, we can move on to the next step.
You stand there, stand away. I just want to see. You're not allowed to go hide anything.
Love it. Love it.
Kari, I was just gonna, I don't know, hopefully your husband is like, gets good feelings, because we're all gonna probably talk really well of him. But I've had a lot of friends that where one partner has retired and transitioned into like the retired athlete life, and then the other is competing. And it doesn't always sound as it did for you, where he seems to be so supportive of you to like help you into that transition. A lot of times it's like, oh, okay, now the retired one needs to just be 100%. It's all about the competitor, and they don't matter anymore, like quote unquote. And that's a really encouraging thing just to hear, that you guys seem to have that good dynamic where he sees probably how important it is for you also to have like a smooth transition from, one phase of life to the next.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we do have like a good balance. Like I did like a couple trips, like I said, and he's like, yeah, you can go have fun, like go do you. Cause I was like, I'm going to Hawaii. And, like sometimes I feel like a significant other might be like, oh, well, aren't you going to wait for me? Like, I want to go with you, but like you're competing or training and everything. Like, let's wait until whenever. And he's like, no, like go have fun. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, if we ever, I'm definitely more than willing to go again too. But he knows that I like have needed my time to like go do my thing. I'm like, you just keep training. And then of course, like at semifinals, like I'll be there and coach him. Because I know what it takes to be an athlete. So I try to give back as well. But yeah, he's been amazing. And like you said, it's nice knowing he supports me in like my future journey after CrossFit.
Yep.
And not just like for competing, and knowing like it's also hard being an athlete and then going to not being an athlete, and not like just being an athlete's everything.
Absolutely.
I love that transition. And I know I've talked about it on the podcast quite a few times because any elite athlete goes through that period. Some are more prepared for it than others, but it's a very real thing for an athlete who's identified only as an athlete for such a long period of time to have a little bit of just being unsure of what's next. And for myself, I use a kind of an interim period of I moved back to Stanford and I helped coach the team the year after I had retired, kind of figure out what I wanted to do and figure out who I was going to be post athlete. And I'm curious from your perspective because we had Alex Kazan on not that long ago, and she had such amazing things to say about you. She's an incredible athlete in her own right, and she was just speaking so highly about you being in the gym and acting as a guide in a lot of ways. And I'm curious, my question is about this interim period where you're done with being a competitor and there are other athletes that are striving to do what you did. Are you looking at that role more of like, I was an athlete, I understand exactly what she's going through, and I can impart a little bit of wisdom having done this very recently? Or do you see yourself transitioning a little bit into an actual coaching role? I think those things are fairly distinct, and I'm curious kind of what you see your role is right now in terms of how you're in the gym and helping out the next generation with someone like Alex.
Yeah, I think right now is more of just like a guide role. I see her with Justin Cutler, and they're just perfect. Like just their interactions and just how much better Alex has gotten over the last like 2 years is mind blowing. I'm like, we used to squat clean together. Like my max was always like 225, 230 to be the most. And she's squat cleaning 265. I'm like, this girl is amazing. But I think what makes her so special too is she's like the sweetest, most genuine person you'll ever meet. And so like someone like that, like you want to see succeed. And I don't like selfishly, one of the things that I'll always remember from her is at West Coast Classic back in 2021. She like told me after the season, and she was like, it was just really nice of you to like come over to me and see how I was doing, just because it was like one of her first major competitions with the individual crew. Like, she was a teen, but it was the first competition like with the big dogs, so to say. And she's like, you just like came over and you asked if I needed anything. And it was just like, you were there for me and like such a good person. And her just saying that and not just being like, oh, you're such a great athlete. Like, I worship the athlete that you were or whatever, like the person. And I think too, like, as you're going through that transition, being an athlete to not hearing people say that, it just like warms your heart and you're like, okay, because I'm like trying to make this transition. Obviously, like I want people to know what I've done in the sport and all my accomplishments there, but I feel like the type of person that you are matters more. So her saying that was just like, okay. And, I see her potential. I see how nice she is and kind and sweet. And I want her to do well. And, she's an underdog and has Justin Cutler by her side. And so I just want to help her however I can. And like last year, I was like, okay, like her first games experience, I just sat down and talked to her. I'm like, these are the things that I wish I would have known at my first CrossFit Games because I didn't have anybody there to tell me that. And I feel like I was just there and just like, oh my gosh, there's Sam Briggs. Oh, there's Camille. Oh, there's Patrick. Like you're just like starstruck and you almost forget why you're there to an extent. And I'm like, okay, yes, they're going to be there, but you're here to like obviously soak up the moment, enjoy it, but do your best. So I haven't maybe been in the gym as much as I would like, but I've gotten to meet up with Alex a little bit outside of the gym, which I think is really nice too. Just like away from that training, because like I said, I'm not training nearly as hard or anything anymore. So it's nice just like seeing her and talking to her about how training is going and what she's going through, if she has any injuries, like just someone to be there to talk to because you have your coach, you love your coach, but sometimes there are things going on that you're like, oh, I want to tell someone else, but I can't tell my coach kind of thing. So I do want to continue to find a way of how I can help future athletes as well, because I think CrossFit is such an amazing sport and it's helped so many athletes, whether they were like a college athlete and then continue in the transition or get out of a funk of doing nothing and then now they're a competitive athlete in a sport. Um, but I don't know if I would ever actually be a coach.
That makes sense. And um, this idea of an athlete transitioning into being a mentor is something that the Olympic Committee and I think a lot of universities do or have been doing a better job with of creating athlete advisory councils and mentorship programs post-career. And CrossFit is still kind of learning these things, right? And we have Brent Fikowski out not that long ago, and he was talking about heading up kind of an athlete council and trying to answer some of the questions from the athlete perspective. But do you see yourself potentially being involved in kind of the forming of what could be this collection of athletes who together give current athletes a way to navigate some of the things that maybe you struggle with first time games, or giving the athlete the ability to talk to someone who's going through the same thing rather than just having to go to the coach who maybe doesn't always have the answers or know exactly what the athlete is actually going through?
Yeah, I definitely think that would be something really cool. And like you said, that's not necessarily there right now. CrossFit is a newer sport. And so, like, even as I was like, I think about this like pretty often, like, what other athletes have like gone through a career and then, like, like move on? And there's like not a lot of them because a lot of like the OG athletes are like still competing, like, whether it's Annie or like, Sam made masters, but she's still competing. So there's a lot of athletes that start out as OGs that are continuing to compete. Or I feel like some are just like, okay, yeah, I'm done. I'm moving on with like whatever it is, family, future business, other things. But I definitely think it is something important for the younger athletes like Alex. And then even like you see like what Mal and Haley and them are going through like mentally. And I think that, could be part of not having guidance or just not having someone to talk to. I mean, I don't know what they're going through, but I think having these kind of things can help the younger athletes either not get burned out or be in it longer, just have a better overall experience. Because if I had someone to talk to that had been through the games and the training and everything that it was when I was starting and just being like, yeah, like focus on doing these things. And after a competition, like really take time off. Like your coach is going to tell you to do it, do it. Like you're going to learn that. And there's just a lot of things I look back on and I would have changed. Obviously, I had a very successful career and I couldn't have asked for better performances and things. But I still feel like there's things that I've learned and I continue to look back and I'm like, oh, if I would have done this or if I would have known this. And I'm learning more about like just women's health overall right now too. And if I would have known like some things that I could have navigated earlier on, it would have set me up better for the future as well. So I think it would be cool to have some people like that involved in CrossFit.
Yeah, these are like I think these are all such new conversations, not even just with CrossFit as a sport, just sports in general, because it's like, yeah, we're all growing and learning and understanding ourselves as humans and athletes, and what everybody needs on a emotional level, as long as like a wellness and health level. And I think in the past, for most athletes, everything was performance. It was just do whatever you can to perform as good as you can, and then when you're done, you're done, and everybody will move on to the next series of athletes, do the same thing, like rinse, repeat. But I think there's enough athletes that have cared about not just themselves and their well-being after competition, but looking now at the next generation of athletes. And like, we still want everybody to compete and strive to be their best, but also be able to continue and strive to be their best, like in life moving forward. And there's certain things that, yeah, can be addressed much better now. And like you, maybe helping to pick up the torch for some women's health issues, and just, yeah, being able to have a better understanding while you're competing of what's possible, and then to transition out of that. That's priceless for us to learn as a community, and to be able to foster that moving forward, not just for CrossFit, but all across the board with sports.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And just as you were talking, it made me think too, like I reached out to like a couple of the athletes that made the games this year that are like on the younger side. And it's like selfishly so cool because it's like, oh, I looked up to you. Like, and just thinking about that, I'm like, okay, this is like the perfect time to make an impact too, that you can
Yeah,
like talk to these girls that like they look up to you, and I like now I look up to them like, wow, like look how cool they're all doing. But I think having someone that you trust, and not just like, oh yeah, like they did this sport like way long ago and then now they come
yeah,
back, like I think, not necessarily right away, like you have to be ready as an athlete to like come back and give back. But I think that's like really important too, just having someone that you've looked up to or that you can connect to, or like what they've done as an athlete.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah, the way they used to do it. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just say you have a relevance right now, which is so cool, from being still so recognizable to CrossFit athletes. The level of accomplishments and performance that you had, and Dave, we were talking about it a little bit earlier. Like, he had similar situations where he was finished competing at Stanford and then was there with the team. And Dave, you can go into it more, but I was the same. I had a coach that was 50 years older than me, and he knew everything. I just didn't want to hear him. And when I found some guys that were like recently retired or towards the tail end of their career, they probably told me the same things he was going to tell me, but it resonated more. So there was just this bridge that I could trust. And then like you're finding now, then you're wanting to kind of reach back and connect that to some of the younger generation.
Yeah, I was just saying that within the Olympic Committee, and then with USA Gymnastics in general, the way that I think was very effective, the way that they put these athlete ambassadors in place, was one, you had to have been an athlete within a 10-year window. So basically, you had to have stayed relevant, and the previous generation needs to know who you are and that you were competing at a high level. You also had to have competed at a Worlds or an Olympic Games to have been in the pool, so you could actually understand what a lot of these athletes were going through. I know what it's like to go out on the floor with 25,000 people watching. I know what it's like to have your name called when it's time to step up and compete. So you can answer a lot of the questions. And then also the way that they did it is that all of the current athletes voted on who the athlete that they wanted to be in the position. So a couple athletes would be put forward, then the athletes themselves voted on, saying, that's the one that I resonate with most. Those are the athletes that I would like to hear from, or that I feel like I have a connection with. So the athletes have a say, and there's an automatic relevance that's put into play in terms of how the application process goes. And I think it was really effective. Like, I was only allowed to be in that position for 10 years post competition. And then after that time, I was like, okay, the younger guys don't even know who you are anymore. And so I think there is this window where you're relevant, they know who you are, you still have a lot of important things to say to the next generation. So for me, that was such an important step, to be able to know that the athletes trusted my voice because they voted for it. And then also saying I can answer the questions because I was just going through it myself.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I feel like that's huge because I've talked to or like heard from other like Olympic athletes too that like finish their career and then they also like wonder like what's next. So I feel like a lot of athletes go through that as well. Cause like most sports, you're an Olympic athlete, you're not very old. So you need to have like a career or future after that. And so I feel like having somebody that maybe you trust to talk to, you can go and talk to them and be like, okay, what's next? And like similar for CrossFit, like the athletes are getting younger. And I know like some of them don't have their college education or they don't know what's going to come next. And so I think that would be something really cool to do, like for while they're competing, and then maybe even, yeah, right after to see what the next steps or the future looks like for them.
Without a doubt. And I just want to mention one thing. The person who was in the role before me was John Roethlisberger, who's the owner of our Flip Fest facility. And he was like one of my idols growing up. Love the guy. He's exactly 10 years older than me. He had been through everything, 3 Olympic Games, national champion 4 times, collegiate athlete, incredible in all aspects of sport. And he was the kind of person that you could really lean on and just say, okay, what was it like for you? But that doesn't mean that you have it all figured out. In fact, when I was done, I had a college education. I had ideas about what I want to do, but I got the hell away from the sport. I moved to Europe. I was like, I want to be away from this stuff. And I think a lot of athletes feel that same way. It's like you're done, and there's so much baggage that comes along with being an elite athlete that sometimes you just need to be like, I need to get away from this. So I moved to another country. I moved to Italy. And I was like, I'm getting away from this for a little while. And the year that I was there helped me reset a little bit and say, you know what, I actually do have some things that I want to give back. And I have some things that I think I still have that are important for the next generation. It took me some time to really find that. And I think it's okay for athletes to do that. When you're done, you don't know exactly what that path is. It's okay. You don't have to have it figured out right away. Take the time to figure it out. Lean on the people who you trust. And I think CrossFit just needs to figure out how to better put into place the outlets for those athletes so they can have the resources available.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And when I was done with gymnastics, I had a friend that mentioned CrossFit and she said, oh yeah, like it includes gymnastics. I was like, no gymnastics. I'm done. I don't want anything to do with it. So I got into like fitness and weightlifting. So it was like different. But then I realized like CrossFit's not like the gymnastics that we know. And so I was like, okay, like maybe I can give it a chance. And then yeah, after CrossFit, there was a time where I was like, no, like I don't want to step into the gym and everything. But I feel like it's been almost long enough now that I'm like, I definitely want to give back. And like I was trying to figure out like in what kind of way too. So it's like you said, it's okay. You probably need to take time for yourself because you got out of the sport for a reason. And whenever you're ready, like come back. It doesn't have to be right away, but like on your own time frame. I think that's super important to mention too.
I also,
And you
Kari,
mentioned, go
Dave,
for it,
we're in
Mike.
sync.
Go.
Just a
Jump in
little
there,
bit
buddy.
ago where you were saying you couldn't really see yourself becoming a coach. I'm hoping that that's just a current feeling because at least my trajectory when I stopped competing, in my mind, probably the next 3 to 4 years, I was still competing with everybody else that was still competing. So like I was even still training relatively hard and like just done competing, but I would still look at everybody like, okay, I can do that. I can do that. I want to do that. But what's been cool, I guess, for me now in the next phase, and I could imagine just the way that you're talking, this might be a track that you take, would be starting to find some joy in coaching people where you're not necessarily putting yourself in the same place as them, but you're really, really like holding hands with them and like going with it. So the first few years that I was retired, I couldn't go to like a national championships or something for weightlifting. I would just I would just feel weird. And now it's one of my favorite places to go. And I just love like celebrating what everybody's doing. And when I get to work and coach athletes, like it's so much fun for me. And I could just imagine that with you because I feel like you have some of these traits that I think Dave's similar to me. Like we both loved our competitive years, but to the point now where we feel that we're 100% educators and coaches, it's the feeling and reward and satisfaction to me is more than anything.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I
just
definitely, I guess I
go
should
for it,
never
Kari. Go
say
for it.
never. Okay. I should never say never. It just hasn't been something that I've like thought about, but I feel like even in the past couple of months, like things have changed with like what I want to do and where I want to maybe like give back. So that's really cool hearing you say that as well.
But speaking of coaching, you mentioned Justin a little bit, and we spoke with Alex about his coaching style, and it seemed like he just had such a great rapport with all of his athletes. And I'm curious from your perspective, what stands out to you about him as a coach in terms of quality as a coach, why people gravitate towards him? You moved across the country to be with him from the East Coast out to Vegas. I'm curious what kind of resonates with you as an athlete as to why people want to compete with him and for him.
I would say his heart. His heart is like the biggest of anybody I know. He's so passionate about what he does. He cares so much. And I told Alex this like when I saw her after semifinals, and I was like, this is a moment like nobody sees. It's like behind the scenes, and it's just Justin being Justin. Like, I don't know if it was when he realized she had won semifinals or just after the last event. And I'm actually getting goosebumps just like talking about it. But he's just back in the corner, just pacing back and forth, just back. Yes, yes, like just to himself, like not for the cameras, not for anybody. It's just like that, like it's just so cool just like seeing him and knowing like he puts his heart into it. And I have to give a little shout out to his wife, Ashley Kotler, who's amazing because she's like at home with the kids. He's like out, like with the athletes and everything. But he's so passionate about what he does. Like the first couple weeks of semis, like he'll be watching film all night long, just studying it. So I never was like a big person to watch like other competitions, even in like the regionals. Like if I was the third weekend, he would watch like the beginning, the first 2 weeks, and then I would go the third. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. But he's just so passionate and he cares so much about each of his athletes that it shows. And like last year, I know he got a lot of attention, like at the different semifinals, and people could see that, but it's not for the camera. Like if the camera was off, like it doesn't matter. Like that's just the kind of person that he is. And sometimes I'm like, I think it's like too much, but he's just so charismatic. And that was what originally drew me to him, because I was with like another coach, and the other coach didn't necessarily give me everything that I thought I needed. So I sat down and talked with Justin for like 2 hours, and I could just tell he would be like all in. And yeah, I moved across the country during COVID, and then I podiumed that year at the games. So I'm like, okay, well, paid off. It would have anyways. I'm in Vegas. We just bought a house, so we're gonna be here long term. But his heart, like I said, is just bigger than anybody that I know, and he cares so much about all of his athletes.
Love that. To be able to find that in your corner is rare, and it's just cool to see. And basically everybody we've spoken to who's one of Justin's athletes has the same thing to say about him. So it's really cool to see how genuine it really is. We have a last little bit of time to talk about some technique. And technique to us is basically where we spend most of our time teaching precision around movement quality. And there's a couple of movements that we wanted to talk to with regards to some of the workouts that really stand out from your competitive career. And I think the two that really kind of come to mind are Mary from 2019 to workout in 2020, both workouts that you won at the games. The 2020 was obviously the ranch and legendary workout in its own right. Both of them have variations of Mary in them. It plays to your strengths in a lot of ways with handstand push-ups, pistols, and pull-ups. But I want to spend some time talking about the handstand push-up by itself. And we've done a lot of podcasts on handstand push-ups. I'm sure listeners are sick of hearing us talk about handstand push-ups. But the way you did your handstand push-ups was fairly interesting. In 2019, you did all strict in all 22, 23 basically rounds of handstand push-ups. And no other athlete is really capable of doing that. Everyone else is kipping. You're doing strict, which to me is a godsend to be able to see that an athlete can win a workout with strict handstand push-ups, which is awesome. You can go fast. But you did it in a way that took advantage of the standard that was allowable, meaning your hands were pretty wide, you were up against the wall, so it wasn't freestanding, so your head was very much in line with your hands. And from a technical perspective, that doesn't translate very well to a higher level variation, similar to what we saw at the games last year with Boz's new stomach to wall, ballistic block, some depth to it, head out in front of the hands, or maybe even a freestanding variation. Question is around how you train that movement. Did you ever do handstand push-up training that basically took tripod or freestanding or stomach to wall or deficit into account, and then apply that to the variation that was needed within a workout like Mary? Or did you always do those reps and become accustomed to wide hands, head in line with hands? Because from a gymnastics background, I'm sure you did it a particular way as well, but I'm curious what that training looked like for you, being that it was such a strength.
Yeah, we did all sorts of variations of handstand push-ups. We did the wall facing. We did a lot of deficit. We've done on blocks. We've done parallel strict or kipping. But I know because of my gymnastics background too, obviously I'm like a very strong presser. You start doing the parallel bar handstand push-ups at such a young age, even if it's spotted, it's just like getting that repetition in. And each workout, I looked at the standard, I saw the box. My coach is like, well, you might as well use like whatever advantage you can. And so put those hands wide. And I did end up I tried a few kipping and I got a nerve and I'm like, oh, no, forget this. Like I am going to do strict. And, like you said, you got to play on the advantage of the wide box. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go here. If I start to get fatigued or tired, then I can like change the position of my hands or move them a little closer or adjust on the fly. But I was like, I'm staying fresh long enough that this wide hand, like short range of motion, obviously like trying to keep your core tight and stay tall is efficient and working for me. So I'm going to keep doing that until I might need a change. But we definitely included a lot of variations of handstand push-ups in your training because I feel like, especially when you're training for the games, you don't know what they're going to bring. They've had deficit, they've had strict deficit, they've had parallel, they've had blocks. So you have to train for everything. But I think just being a strong presser helps you to adapt to whatever you're given.
I want to emphasize that one more time because I think that answer is amazing. For all the listeners out there, she has tools in her tool belt to be able to apply it according to the standard that is thrown at her. That's not the only variation that Kari has in her tool belt. And I think that's so important because most people will watch you and say, she's doing it that way, I'm going to mimic that movement. And they forget about all of the other things that you were doing to allow yourself to be able to use the technique that was most appropriate for that moment. And so the secondary question is 2022, Boz threw out tons of new gymnastics movements. And that was your first games that you had missed in years. I'm curious, one, if you were like, shit, I wish I would have been competing. If there was a particular workout that was gymnastics specific that you wish you would in there to test. And if that strict handstand push-up variation stomach to wall was something that you also wish you would have been able to test out.
Yes, I wish I would have been able to test that out. And a lot of people like messaged me right after it was announced. They're like, oh, where are you at? Like you would win this workout. I'm like, well, I don't know if I would win it, but I definitely think I would do well just because, like I said, the gymnastics days, all the pressing, like, and I think just the new gymnastics stuff is really cool to see and just challenges athletes in a whole new way because I feel like there's still a lot of growth or like different movements they can do from gymnastics throughout the games just to test athletes. And so I think that was just like really cool that he threw that out there. And then now like this year he put it into the open. So, you never know what variations he's going to throw out of different handstand push-ups or maybe raising the deficit or whatever it is. But I think it's just cool seeing different types of handstand movements and testing the athletes to see how well-rounded they are. And then the elevated Elizabeth, I also thought was really cool. Ariel smashed that workout. And I was like, that would be fun to do with them as well. Like just the dips, because I mean, you would smash it like that much time spent on the parallel bars. But like I remember just playing as a kid and like walking across and doing a lot of dips and stuff there. So I think that would have been fun as well.
I love it. I love it. Definitely cool to see. I'm excited what he's going to be putting out there again this year. But if there was a gymnastics move that we have not seen yet at the games, what would you like to see implemented that would you'd get excited about? What gymnastics movement?
Well, first, I'm just going to start out as I like continue to think about that. Back when they had the chaos event in like 2019, I was like, I wish they would have. There was pistols, and that one was when I was like, I think there's going to be freestanding handstand push-ups. There wasn't that year, but there ended up being in 2021. If I had to see something now, because before I was always like, oh, like freestanding handstand push-ups would be cool. Obviously, they did that, and they did the press to handstands last year, but any gymnast would be like, those, yeah, exactly. Those aren't press to handstands. So I think it would be cool to see some actual press to handstands, like keep your arms straight. But I don't think they would end up doing that. But I think that would be really cool because it is such a hard skill. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Love it. Love it. We spoke with Boz about it. And he was very clear that he didn't want it to be named a press to handstand. It was just from support to handstand. So
Oh,
basically,
mhm.
it was not a press variation. But we also had Annie Sakamoto on not that long ago again, and Annie's close with us. And when they upgraded the Annie workout into Gymnasty Annie, they added press to handstands. This is maybe 3-4 months ago. I can't remember exactly, but not that long ago. And I was helping Annie learn to press to handstand. Annie is like just a crazy freak of an athlete, and she learned to press in like a couple of weeks. It's just unbelievable. But we were talking about how you would judge a press to handstand. And you tell me whether or not you think this would be a valid way to go about it, because it's very easy to jump off the ground. And, you know, for a judge who doesn't know gymnastics, is it a jump? Is it a press? So my way of thinking that it would be an easily judgeable rep would be to kick to handstand. You would have to lower, just touch your toes, not putting your full weight, and then press back up from there. And that's the rep that you need to show. So it's some precision around stability, touching the toes, and not actually showing support. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that. And I remember in gymnastics when we used to have to do that with pikes, so your feet together, or like straddles, so your feet like come apart. No, I think that's great. I really like that. And that would be fun to like watch, especially like higher rep and the girls and guys both. Yeah, I like that.
All right, Buzz, listen to this, and let's see if we can get it implemented. Maybe not this year, but sometime soon enough. The athletes are getting there.
So the athletes that
Mike,
listen to the
anything?
podcast will have a
Yeah,
hands up on the athletes that don't.
exactly. Mike, anything you want to add?
Oh no, I'm still, every time these topics come up, I'm always trying to think of like fun and entertaining, especially for like spectators, like combinations. I love when workouts have combination of gymnastics and weightlifting, of course, and it does not necessarily that it has to be like a 1 rep max snatch or like you know, a crazy heavy clean complex. But I've liked seeing, and I would imagine, Kari, you like it too, when especially when Boz will put in something that you have to demonstrate control and like proficiency. So like having to stay in a box for certain things with handstand holds or walks. I would love to see some type of snatch ladder where you actually have to pause in the catch at a weight until the judge tells you like you can stand and go. Like, so to demonstrate like a really good stability or something of that likelihood. Dave, I would love to see something with maybe it'd be a little bit hard to standardize, but like it maybe your buy-in to each round is a certain like support hold in the rings. Just these little things that make the brain stop for a moment and pause, and of course work on all the little components that we value so much that a lot of times people are missing when they're training, because they want to do the big like sexy movements, but they don't realize all these little components that most of the athletes like you, Kari, are either have been working on since you were young from previous sports or are in your day-to-day training. It's just everybody's not sitting there watching you do all of these drills and all of these technical components that are actually building the product that you're demonstrating in a competition.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. Actually, as you were saying, like a snatch ladder, I was like, what if they had to do like a handstand pirouette each way and then go into like a snatch, like just like something like being out of breath, or like your shoulders tired or being kind of out of breath, and
Yep.
then like being able to control yourself in a box and a pirouette each way. Because I think they just like made them do one. It didn't matter what way you went. So that'd be
Yep.
cool to see like people do each way as well in that box.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that adds precision and a little bit of that added concentration, and not just like, you know, crazy go.
More of the 10 physical skills that we don't see. More balance,
Yep.
more accuracy.
Yep.
More balance, more accuracy. We're so focused on power and stamina and all those other things that we kind of put as kind of these pillars of our 10 physical skills, but accuracy and balance are just not touched on enough, and they're huge components of the gymnastic side of things. So I love that idea, Mike. I'd love to see somebody put in those Cossack squats you were doing the other day too. Mike, give a little love to yourself. What did you do those Cossack squat, the overhead Cossack squat? What did you do it out the other day?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I did. I've had like weird goals over the years, Kari. So you'll get I think you'll get this now that you're still like newly retired. You won't necessarily want to be super competitive, but you'll just have something. You're like, oh, I want to see if I can do that, and how long will it take me? So a few years back, there was a video of a guy doing just like a back rack Cossack squat with 225, and everybody thought it was really phenomenal, which it was. But I was like, oh, I don't think that's so hard. So I had a goal and I did it with the back rack. But recently I've been doing more handstands because I'm so influenced by Dave. So I've started to play around with barbell overhead Cossack squats. And I was able to do one while we were here. Everybody was PRing. We had our retreat, and like all the participants were getting their first muscle up and getting PR handstand holds. And I was like, okay, I have to make up something to get a PR now, because like at this point in my life, I can't PR anything. So yeah, I did a overhead Cossack squat with a barbell with 100 kilos, so 220. And I was pretty happy about it because I wasn't sure if I could do it, and then it went pretty well. So I was like, all right.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I tried it from the front rack with an 8-pound kettlebell, and I pulled my adductor on the first rack. I was like, yes, this is not my sport.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I love the like competitive nature between you guys too.
Yeah, you have
Okay,
you have a lot of things
it.
to look forward to. You have a lot of things to look forward to as you progress forward, whether it's, dialing in the new level of nutrition and balance. But there's still going to be some random PRs and random movements that you can look forward to in your life.
I like it. And I'll secretly try it when no one's watching. And then when I get it, then I can tell people about it.
Show it off.
Perfect. That's what we do.
I like Kari, we have some normally last minute questions here. I won't bore everyone or make Mike feel bad with you choosing gymnastics as your preferred sport over weightlifting again, but
we already know it.
We already knew that. Any books or movies that you're into right now that you'd like the listeners to know
maybe
about?
One on your shirt, maybe.
Well, this is Believe.
Oh,
this is Alex's shirt. So I was like, oh, I know she like said something about me on the podcast. I was like, what shirt? I should wear that one. So just supporting Alex. And I wore it at semifinals, like on the final day. Yeah.
That's one of Jordan's favorite shows too. Little Ted Lasso.
Is that Ted Lasso inspired though? Do you know?
I think, yeah. Okay. I think so. I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because when I wore it, a lot of people asked if it was. And so I was like, we're going with yes. And I actually haven't asked her yet. So I'll have to ask her that.
Amazing.
Perfect. And one other question, which I think we can even answer together, but someone that we would have on the podcast that you've come across recently, someone you think would be a great guest. And I'm just going to answer for you because we're going to have Justin on next week, and we haven't had Justin on in a while. And what do you think about having Justin on? Would that be a good guest for us?
Oh, of course. I always love talking to him. And especially right now, like as you're gearing up for the games, yeah, he's going to be great.
So Kari, then I have a follow-up to that. No pressure. If you could think of one or two things that we should ask him that maybe would go over, over our head. Do you have one or two things that could be a good question for him? And if you think of it and you want to send it to us in email, completely fine. But
yeah, I was like, funny. Yeah, give me a little bit of time to like think about it and let it soak in, and then I'll send you guys some emails.
If you shoot us something funny, awkward, inspiring, it really doesn't matter. Like whatever gets the ball rolling, it'll be fun for us.
Okay, cool.
Amazing. Well, Kari, thank you so much for the time. It's great catching up with you. Congrats again on the new house, moving in, and all the things that come along with that. Where can our listeners follow along and catch up with Kari Pearce 2.0?
Still continue to follow me on Instagram, just at Kari Pearce CrossFit. And then my Facebook is Kari Pearce CrossFit Games athlete. And yeah, I was like, I need to get those changed, but for now, we're going to stick with them.
All right. Mike, anything else from your end?
Oh, Kari, thank you so much. It's been 3 years since you were on the podcast, and I got promoted because Chad is just, a very busy guy these days, and his busyness is my pleasure. So I got to come on and talk to you. So I really appreciate the conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that was great. It's always fun talking to you guys, and congrats on the promotion.
Thank you. Been 12 years in the making, so I'm pretty pumped.
There you go. Those are the best ones, though.
Making strides, Mike.
Wow.
Well,
sometimes you're like, I don't know if it's ever going to happen. Oh, yeah, of course. Enjoy Europe.
Thank you. We'll let you know how the badger situation goes. And
that's what I was saying. Good luck with the honey badger.
You got it. You got it. For all the listeners out there, please be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for upcoming services and events. Check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Mike Service. On behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your hosts. I'm Dave Durante with my co-host Mike Service. And until next time, thank you all for listening.